This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Here we go. Hockey season starts next Friday, and the NHL betting guide is out now. Andy MacNeil put it together, all 32 team previews, point projections, everything, three things every new NHL bettor should know. Rookies to watch. Get it, VSiN.com/subscribe. Give yourself an edge this season and get the VSiN Hockey Season Prep Guide, over 60 pages. And Andy joins us now, so get the guide. Did all the hard work here, and he joins us to talk about the upcoming hockey season. Thanks for the time, Andy. Let's start with that. What are some three new things that new bettors need to know in your opinion?
Well, first of all, the NHL season is a grind. There are over 1,300 regular season games, and it really doesn't stop for anything. 3 days around the holidays, 4 days around the All-Star game. But outside of that, it's go, go, go. And it can be pretty taxing on, obviously, the teams and the players. I mean, if you want one example, home teams have won roughly 55% over the last 5 seasons. Their win rate drops to about 50% in the second half of a back-to-back game. So fatigue is a big thing in the NHL season, and hey, it can wear on a bettor as well. And then after that, obviously, hockey it's a chaotic sport, and it can really test how easily you're fooled by variance and randomness. Things are not always as they seem. That's why I like to rely on some of the modern hockey statistics, like shot attempts and scoring chances and things of that nature to craft my projections. And thirdly, the NHL is evolving. Favorites are winning a lot more these days. Favorites won 64% of the time last season. That was up a couple of percentage points from the season before. And if you look at how often we see big favorites, we're talking teams with an implied win probability of 70% or higher. That was around 5% 3 seasons ago, jumped up to 10% last season. Over 15% of the games in 2021-22 had a team with an implied win probability of 70% or more. So, I mean, don't be surprised to see some minus 400, minus 500 favorites this season. It's a different league, right? The gap between the worst team and the best team is so much bigger now than it was 10 years ago or any time before that.
Well, how about this Arizona outfit? I mean, they're supposed to be lousy. Number one, they're playing in a 5,000-seat arena. And then they start, Islanders Part 2 is starting out with all these road games. Could the Arizona Coyotes be historically bad?
Yeah, I mean, I've got them projected to be the worst team in the NHL with 66 points on average. Not very far behind the Chicago Blackhawks, who I think more than any other team have made their intentions clear. They want Connor Bedard, and who can blame them? He's an exceptional player, only the 7th player in history to be granted that exceptional status into the CHL, and he looks like a generational talent. So teams like Arizona, Chicago, and a few others are definitely eyeing up that number 1 overall draft pick.
Okay, so I'm glad that you brought up it's not only a grind for the players and the coaches, it's also a grind for bettors. So I want to tie in this question to your approach to betting hockey on a daily basis and some of the key numbers that our audience need to know that might be jumping in for the first time. Explain that. Like, what do they need to be looking for on a day in, day out basis? And because it is such a grind, do you ever take a day off? Do you ever just get to the point in January or whenever it's like, I have to sit there with the family. I got to do something. I got to get away from this for 24 hours.
I'll touch on that first because I think you've got to, when you do things at the level and the pace that I'm doing them at every day, you've got to kind of take breaks when you get burnout. Burnout is a thing in the gambling world, and just like any other workplace, and it can affect other areas of your life. So you definitely got to take care of yourself. As far as planning your approach to betting on hockey, I think for most people with 9-to-5 jobs and families and busy lives, the futures markets are your best bet. I've got some big edges that I've picked out. Just looking at DraftKings, for example, and you can shop around and maybe find some different edges at different books, but you'd be hard pressed to find a bigger edge in a game on a day-to-day basis than you will in a preseason futures market. So this is the best bet for a lot of people because as far as planning your approach on a day-to-day basis, it's tough, man. If you're going to rely on information, let's say beat beat reporters tweeting out lineups and stuff like that. It's a very reactionary market, and there are people like me who have made this their whole life, and their sole mission is to get to the good bets before you do, and that's what you're up against, right? So I'm not saying I'm always right or anything like that, but I've definitely got my eye on the ball all the time, and there are a lot of other people like me out there. So for most people, I think futures bets, it's your best area to profit over the course of a season.
Get the NHL betting guide. It's out now. Season starts next week. Put together by Andy MacNeil, our guest right now here on VSiN Follow the Money. Paulie and Mitch. How about the goaltender movement was crazy, and I love my guy Campbell going to Edmonton. But how about some off-season moves that you liked?
Yeah, it was a crazy offseason, and you guys talked about taking breaks. Well, I didn't. I mean, I worked basically every day for 8 months last season, and so when the summer hit and the playoffs ended, I took a break and really didn't pay attention to the news for a couple of weeks, and I had a lot of catching up to do. It was a wild summer, like you said, the goaltender movement, a lot of that. But as far as the moves that really stuck out, obviously what happened in Calgary with Johnny Gaudreau first leaving to go to the Columbus Blue Jackets, Matthew Tkachuk, the trade for Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, and you look at what the Senators did, bringing in Alex Brinkett from Chicago, signing Claude Giroux. There was a lot of exciting stuff, and has given a lot of teams a different look heading into this year.
How about some points totals and maybe a couple division winners that you like, or could be some value there?
Well, one team that I've really kind of think is sort of being overlooked, and this might catch a few people off guard, but it's the Washington Capitals. They made some moves over the summer. They brought in Darcy Kemper. They overhauled their goaltending department. They were a pretty good defensive team last year. They had bad goaltending, so they really didn't stand out as one. But with Kemper coming in, I think the Capitals have a really good chance to compete for a Metropolitan Division title. They're sitting at 7-1. At a lot of shops, and I think that price should be closer to 5-1. I think the Caps are good. Stanley Cup bet at 40-1. I mean, Tom Wilson's out, Nicholas Backstrom's out. Wilson's going to be back in December. They added Ryan Strome, Connor Brown. This is a team that's been a top 10 offensive team every year for what seems like more than a decade. And like I said, they're a pretty good defensive team, and now they've got a good goaltender. And I also like Kemper as a bet to win a flyer, let's say, to win the Vezina Trophy. He's 25-1. Okay. Like a guy like UC Saros was my favorite bet 2 years ago at 40-1, and last year at 25-1. He's down to 10-1 this year. The book is out on him. Kemper, though, his save percentage is right there with Sorokin, Vasilevsky, and Saros over the last 3 to 4 seasons. So I think he's a good bet for a flyer Vezina winner. What
do you do to the Rangers' power rating if they acquire Patrick Kane?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, Kane would change any team. The Rangers, they're a better team now than they were at the beginning of last season. Obviously, they had a big coming out party in the playoffs, but so much of their projection relies on Shesterkin. So, adding a big piece like that would definitely shift things a little more toward the team itself. But with Shesterkin, I mean, you still expect him to be great this season. He's the guy that's most likely going to win the Vezina Trophy. But the Rangers' projection is just so fragile, given that, if he was to go down with an injury, even for, a quarter of the season, that could really deal a big blow to that team.
Andy, the most important question of the entire segment here. Is this finally the year a Canadian team wins the Cup?
I mean, they've got some pretty good contenders.
Yes, they do.
I happen to think that the Calgary Flames are a stronger team now than they were last season, and they might not be the best team in the NHL, but I think they will have a good chance of being atop the NHL standings when it's all said and done. I've got them finishing with almost 110 points on average, the most in the NHL, just a little bit above the Carolina Hurricanes. So I think Flames fans should be excited. I don't want to really touch on the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's become a sore spot for anybody trying to predict playoff success.
I think they can win a playoff series and end the drought.
Totally.
But that's where we're at now. I know that's what it's like. Yeah. All right, can't wait to read it, and great job on all this, and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
You got it.
Thanks, Andy.
Andy MacNeil. Get the NHL betting guide out now. Start early. Season starts next Friday. So it's available now with the best bets for the season ahead and the analysis and the breakdown from Andy MacNeil. VSiN.com/subscribe. The goaltender movement, Mitch, all this stuff too. And I'll give you one right now before the end of I'll do Vegas under again. 97 here. I mean, how poorly run the organization's been the last few years.
I don't
Mass
disagree.
exodus. I mean, there's no way they get 98 points as far as I'm concerned.
I don't think they go over 97 either. I was surprised, let's put it that way, when that opened up.
Right.
They do that here in town because they're going to get, I mean, the public, again, will probably just flood books with over money, but...
It'd be nice if the streak ends, too. A little birdie told me take a peek at Calgary, 30-35 to 1. Also, a guy I respect likes the Devils. The Devils to make some noise, too. I read a good article on... You
don't want to bet the Oilers with Campbell?
Love Campbell.
Their number's too low.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yep.
Imagine if Edmonton finally plays defense against goaltending.
Oh.
I mean, that's scary. Another one, maybe Ottawa first coach fired. Read a good article about that, too. There's expectations a little bit for Ottawa.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.